So, right now, somewhere in some massive multi-billion-dollar tech lab, there's an engineer writing code that is specifically designed to self-destruct,
Right.
which is wild. They're using this highly volatile, totally temporary software to build what they hope is, the most permanent, powerful AI in human history.
Yeah, it's quite the
It
paradox.
really is. And,
Yeah.
we're just so obsessed with outlasting our own temporal limits, building these enduring legacies. But we're increasingly building our reality on foundations that are, well, designed to vanish in seconds. So, welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks. I mean, it really is the ultimate modern paradox. And
Hmm.
if you really want to understand how society functions today, you don't look at our mission statements or our press release.
Right? You look at the language,
Exactly. You look at our language, the specific idioms, the slang, the highly specialized industry jargon we use. It acts as a sort of
the
synthesizer.
synthesizer. I like that.
Yeah, because it reveals the exact mechanics of how we interact with our technology,
Yeah.
how we inevitably clash with each other, and how we desperately try to navigate time itself.
And that's exactly what we're decoding today. So we've got this incredible stack of sources, and our mission is to decode this linguistic landscape that pretty much maps out the entire human experience.
From the cutting edge down to the messiest parts.
Exactly. So let's start in that tech lab, because when we talk about building the future, the terminology we use to describe safety and control is actually incredibly revealing. Take the concept of a digital playpen.
Oh, it's a brilliant piece of nomenclature. Because in software engineering, when you're dealing with something potentially world-altering or, highly volatile, you don't just test it out in the open.
Right, that would be a disaster.
Total disaster. So
Oh.
you build a playpen, which is this heavily monitored, completely isolated sandbox environment.
Gotcha.
It basically allows engineers to test incredibly risky ideas
Yeah.
without the threat of catastrophic failure, bleeding into the real world.
It's like engineering by way of quarantine, right? And inside that playpen, engineers use what our sources call ephemeral software,
Yeah.
which I love because it completely goes against how we normally think about computing. Usually we want our tech to be robust, to last forever.
But ephemeral software it's temporary by design,
Hmm.
like serverless architecture.
Right. It's use and discard. You spin up a massive amount of computing power to run a simulation, and the second the test is over, the environment dissolves. It's literally like a self-destructing message in a spy movie.
Yes, exactly.
It's a highly specialized, dangerous job, and then poof, it vanishes to keep the overarching system safe.
You construct a temporary reality to house a temporary action. But the reason we go through all this trouble building isolated playpens and utilizing ephemeral software is so we can safely experiment with what the industry calls unhobbling.
No, wait, I always assumed unhobbling just meant like making a processor faster or feeding an AI more data.
Like upgrading an engine.
Yeah, exactly, upgrading a car's engine. But looking at the mechanics of it in our sources, it seems far more complicated than just hitting the gas pedal.
It's it's entirely different from just adding speed. Unhobbling is about the removal of deliberate constraints.
Okay.
Think about advanced AI models, especially when it comes to complex math or deep reasoning problems. Often, the raw computational power and the logic pathways are already present within the system, but developers intentionally hobble the model.
They hold it back on purpose.
Exactly. They put artificial guardrails on it because the system might hallucinate, or it might reach conclusions in ways we just don't fully understand yet.
So we deliberately cripple our own creations because we're terrified of what happens if they operate at full capacity.
Precisely. Unhobbling is the act of taking those brakes off. It's allowing the system to use its full latent potential to reason through a problem. But, as you might expect, when you unleash a highly complex system, the results are, well, they're rarely a smooth, perfect, upward curve of progress.
Which brings up a term I hear thrown around constantly in tech and economics right now, which is jaggedness.
Ah, yes. Jaggedness.
And I have to be honest, I've always been a little cynical about this word.
Really? How come?
Well, half the time it feels like jaggedness is just a corporate excuse for a faulty product. Like, oh, the AI isn't broken, the progress is just jagged.
Right.
It feels like a way to dodge accountability for uneven capabilities.
I completely understand that skepticism. I really do. It definitely gets used as a PR shield. But mathematically and structurally, jaggedness is a very real inherent cost of unhobbling.
Okay, so how does it actually manifest?
Well, when you remove limits on a powerful system, whether that's an AI model or, say, a macroeconomic market, progress just does not manifest evenly. Look at a post-recession economic recovery.
Right.
You don't just see the entire country get 10% richer overnight. You see jaggedness. The tech sector might explode with unprecedented growth, while manufacturing continues to deeply struggle or even regress.
I see. So jaggedness is the reality that you cannot have exponential growth without sharp volatile edges. The capabilities are uneven, the data is volatile.
Right. It is the friction of rapid expansion.
Yeah.
And we build these perfect, isolated digital playpens specifically to manage that jaggedness, to keep the sharp edges from cutting into our daily lives.
But the problem is you can't live in a playpen forever.
No, you can't.
Eventually, you have to log off. And the transition from that tightly controlled, ephemeral digital world to the physical reality of human existence is severe because we expect humans to operate like code, but the reality is we are fundamentally chaotic.
We are the ultimate source of jaggedness.
Yeah, we really are.
If you look at the baseline state of modern life, the word that captures it most accurately in our sources is hectic.
It's the default setting. A hectic week at the office, everyone rushing to meet deadlines, back-to-back meetings, just a constant barrage of notifications.
And in that incredibly hectic environment, the trait we prize above all else is temperament. Specifically, an even unflappable temperament.
We want the people around us to act like human playpens.
Exactly. Absorbing all the risk, the noise, and the chaos of the office without breaking, without letting the jaggedness show.
We want to be unhobbled, high-performing assets that never crash. But this is where the linguistic mirror gets really interesting because right next to this expectation of perfect temperament, we have the reality of our biology. We have the word grumbly.
A wonderfully perceptive word.
It really is, because it highlights exactly why we fail to be machines. You can have the best temperament in the world, you can be the most unhobbled, highly efficient worker in your sector, but if you don't get enough sleep, you wake up grumbly.
You're easily angered, you complain.
Yeah. It's a beautiful, unavoidable biological failing. We require physical maintenance.
And when we're deprived of that maintenance, our temperament begins to erode in very specific, predictable stages. It never starts with an explosion. It starts with minor sensory friction.
Like the phrase from the sources, someone's constant humming begins to get a little over my skin.
Yes, get a little over my skin.
It's that creeping, low-level frustration. I had this happen just last week. I was trying to focus on a massive project, already feeling completely hectic, and someone a few desks down was just absent-mindedly clicking their spacebar.
Oh, no.
Click, click. And normally, my temperament could handle it, but because I was operating on maybe 5 hours of sleep, it just got a little over my skin. You can physically feel your threshold for patience lowering.
Exactly. You're experiencing the jaggedness of your own emotional regulation. And if that friction isn't resolved, you reach the critical escalation point, which the source material so vividly describes as loser noodle.
You completely lose emotional control. The noodle is gone.
It is gone. You walk into the kitchen, see a massive mess left by your roommates, and that grumbly baseline just ignites.
But the breakdown of our machine-like efficiency isn't always driven by frustration or anger, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's driven by our inherent empathy, our soft spots.
Right, our soft spots.
This is the part of the human chronology that I find so fascinating. A soft spot is a built-in vulnerability. Like the person in the sources who cannot walk past a stray dog without bringing it home, no matter how illogical or inconvenient it is.
It completely bypasses your rational brain.
Exactly. So, to you listening right now, think about what your soft spot is. It might be a specific sad movie, or a family member who always needs a favor, or even just a ridiculous type of dessert.
We all have one.
We do. It's that one specific trigger that renders your unhobbled logical mind completely useless.
It proves that we are not ephemeral software. Our soft spots, our grumbly mornings, our tendency to lose our noodles, these aren't bugs in the human system. They are the system.
That's a great way to put it.
But this raises a much darker question. When you take all of these hectic, grumbly, biologically vulnerable people and force them to interact in a high-stress environment, what happens?
Well, you get collateral damage. You get clashes, conflict, and a really intense struggle for power. And our language maps out this conflict on an incredibly detailed spectrum, starting from the smallest, most petty forms of friction, like the word tattle.
It's the lowest stakes of betrayal. You know, My younger brother would always tattle on me if I stayed out past curfew.
Right, that's almost juvenile. But then you scale that same concept up into the adult professional world, and it becomes much more insidious. You get phrases like, make light of her.
Corporate invalidation.
Yeah.
A manager deliberately choosing to make light of an employee's concerns during a critical meeting. It's no longer just tattling. It's a strategic power play designed to diminish someone's agency in front of an audience.
And sometimes those power plays are calculated, but other times they're just incredibly reckless. Enter the bull in china shop.
Oh, yeah.
It's the person who comes into a delicate situation, maybe delivering sensitive news or handling a fragile client, and just obliterates the room because they lack the fine-tuned temperament required.
Notice how we use that phrase, though.
What do you mean?
Well, bull in a china shop implies the damage isn't necessarily malicious, it's just a byproduct of scale and clumsiness.
Oh, that's true. But then our language shifts gears completely when the conflict becomes intentional and intellectual. We move from the clumsy bull to phrases that are shockingly violent.
Right.
For instance, the slang term, bake-whacked. This one stopped me in my tracks. I had big-whacked her.
Yeah, it's a very specific regional dialect used to describe thoroughly defeating someone with a final counter-argument in an intense debate.
But bake-whacked sounds like you literally hit them over the head with a frying pan. Why do we do this? Is it just about winning an argument? Or does it reveal that we unconsciously view intellectual debate as actual physical combat?
It heavily points to the latter. I mean, our linguistic architecture constantly borrows from the vocabulary of physical violence to describe intellectual or emotional victories. We destroy our opponents in a debate. We tear apart their logic.
Wow, yeah, we do.
Bake-whacked is just a more visceral, colloquial manifestation of that exact same instinct. But if you zoom out and look at all these terms together, the bull in a china shop, bake-whacking someone, even making light of them, there's a very clear structural pattern.
Which is?
They all represent a state of total active agency.
Meaning the person doing the action holds all the power. They're the ones inflicting the chaos.
Exactly. But the linguistic landscape then takes a sharp downward turn into phrases where agency is completely stripped away. We move from being the instigator to being the receiver of the jaggedness.
Yeah, you go from being the bull to bearing the brunt of it.
Taking the main negative impact.
I know exactly what that feels like. A few years ago, I was managing this massive marketing rollout, and the software development side of our team completely dropped the ball. The product just wasn't ready.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. But because I was the client-facing lead, I had to sit in the boardroom and explain the failure to the executives. I was the brunt of it. I didn't cause the jaggedness, but I had to absorb all of it. And you feel entirely powerless in that moment.
And that feeling of powerlessness scales up into far more severe violations of boundaries. Like the phrase from the sources, "he stalked me."
Feeling followed after work, requiring police intervention.
It is a complete theft of someone else's safety and autonomy. You are reduced from an active participant in your life to a target. And what's truly unsettling is that this theft of agency doesn't just happen interpersonally.
It happens on a massive systemic level, too. Which brings us to the phrase political pawn. Now, just to be super clear to anyone listening, we are looking at this strictly through the lens of linguistics and sociology. We're not endorsing any political stance or taking sides here.
Right, purely linguistic.
But the linguistic definition of a political pawn, like the example of a group of refugees feeling used to score points in an election, is the ultimate expression of systemic manipulation.
It is the complete erasure of your individual humanity. You're no longer a person. You are a tool for someone else's strategy. You are simply moved around the board by systems far larger than yourself.
And it's paired with another phrase in our sources that utilizes the exact same passive syntax. Wheeled out of his house. An elderly statesman being passively wheeled out of his house to greet reporters.
Notice the passive voice.
Yeah.
Whether you are a political pawn or being physically wheeled out, the language dictates that you are no longer the one making the moves. You are subjected to a hectic world, completely exposed, without any playpen to protect you.
It's sobering. I mean, we swing so wildly between having total control building unhobbled AI, bake-whacking our rivals, and being entirely at the mercy of others. So how do we survive that? When you are bearing the brunt of it, when the jaggedness of life is just overwhelming, how do you actually find your grounding?
You start by looking for a foothold, or foothold, as it's often said.
Right, the desperate struggle to find is one solid piece of rock on a steep, slippery cliffside so you don't fall.
It is the search for stability in a volatile environment. And sometimes the only way to find that foothold is to take a radical action to stop your own momentum entirely.
Which brings up a phrase that I think is incredibly useful, not just mechanically, but as a tool for daily survival. Take her key out of ignition.
Yeah,
Obviously, literally, this means shutting down a vehicle and removing the key so you can walk away. But casually, as a metaphor for mental health and boundary setting, it is so effective.
absolutely.
We just talked about people losing their noodle, about the exhaustion of bearing the brunt of the office chaos. Sometimes the only way to survive a hectic environment is to literally take the key out of the ignition of your own brain.
That's a great way to think about it.
You have to intentionally shut the engine down, pull the key, and walk away from the situation before you crash.
Because it is an active reclamation of your agency.
Right.
You are intentionally making yourself unavailable to the chaos. You are stopping the machine.
Right.
And once you stop the machine, once you secure that foothold, you finally have the bandwidth to observe and document reality clearly. You can begin to establish a chronology.
Relying on historians, or even just your own memory, to provide a detailed, time-ordered sequence of events, like leading up to a war.
We rely on chronologies to make sense of the clashes we just discussed. When you're in the middle of a conflict, everything feels jagged and disconnected. A chronology forces order upon the chaos. It lays out the cause and effect so we can actually understand how we got here.
We desperately need to put things in order, and if a chronology organizes time, the phrase type still captures how we try to freeze it entirely.
Yeah, it's a highly specialized photographic term. A photographer specializing in type still shots for a movie set. Amidst all the motion, the dialogue, the hectic environment of a production, the still photographer is there to capture a single, specific, unmoving moment.
It is the exact opposite of the ephemeral software we talked about at the beginning of the show. A still shot isn't designed to self-destruct, it's designed to endure.
Exactly.
And that desire for permanence, for things that last, echoes through the final phrases we need to look at. Pay dividends and have a longer shelf life.
We desperately want our actions to yield returns that outlast the initial effort. Learning a new language, for example, is an investment of time that pays dividends throughout your entire career. It continuously rewards you.
And we want the things we create to survive without decaying.
Yeah.
We talk about digital books having a longer shelf life than physical ones because they don't rot or tear. We are fundamentally obsessed with outlasting our own temporal limits.
Which is why the final and perhaps most powerful concept we're exploring today is so vital. It is the bedrock that allows us to build things with a longer shelf life. It is conviction.
Conviction.
It carries an incredible dual weight in our language. On one hand, it's a legal sentence, the formal institutional declaration of guilt, the absolute finality of the law.
Right.
But more profoundly, on a personal level, it is a firm, unwavering belief. It is the persuasive power required to move an entire room of people with a single message. When someone speaks with deep conviction, it cuts through the noise of the hectic office.
It's the ultimate anchor.
It truly is. If you synthesize everything we've decoded today, we live in a world defined by the jaggedness of rapid technological unhobbling. Our human temperament is constantly tested by lack of sleep and minor frictions that get under our skin.
We're surrounded by aggressive bulls in china shops.
And we constantly face the risk of losing our agency and being used as political pawns. In an environment that chaotic, speaking and acting with unwavering conviction is the only reliable countermeasure. It is the solid rock. It is precisely what ensures your efforts won't just vanish like ephemeral code, but will actually pay dividends and endure.
It's just incredible how a random collection of vocabulary can perfectly map the human condition. So, to you, listening right now, I want you to take a second and actually reflect on this. Look back at your last few days. Which phase of this linguistic map are you currently in?
It's a great question to ask yourself.
Are you feeling unhobbled and ready to tackle complex problems? Are you a little grumbly and letting things get over your skin?
Yeah.
Or are you just desperately trying to find a foothold on a slippery cliff?
It is an essential diagnostic question. And as we close this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final puzzle to mull over. It builds directly off the paradox we opened with.
Oh, hit us with it.
We started by looking at the frontier of technology. The engineers writing ephemeral software in digital playpens. Code that is explicitly designed to execute its function and then disappear without a single trace.
Yeah.
It is the ultimate manifestation of our fleeting digital age. Yet, we just concluded by acknowledging that what we value most deeply as humans are things that have a longer shelf life, things built on unshakable, permanent conviction.
The tension between the temporary tools we use and the permanent legacy we want to leave.
Exactly. We exist in an increasingly ephemeral reality. The text messages you send, the trending ideas you consume, the serverless apps running your daily life, they are all designed to vanish in a day.
Poof, gone.
So in an environment that is structurally built on impermanence, how do you ensure your personal conviction doesn't become ephemeral too? When everything around you is engineered to self-destruct, will the actions you take today just be another jagged temporary blip in the data, or will they truly pay dividends in your own grand chronology?
Wow. That is a question worth keeping the key in the ignition for. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.